Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert. You're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. I'm also the author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Life. And today I have a husband and wife team on, Noelle and Robert Peterson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm going to actually read Noelle's bio first so you can get to know her. And then I'm going to read Robert's. So Noelle Peterson is the author of Dream Life Planner, Move from Tired and Overwhelmed to Free and Empowered, and co-founder of Add Value to Life Coaching. Noelle helps women awaken their dreams and design a path to reach them. Noelle served in Christian ministry as a missionary. She began her own entrepreneurial journey after 13 years in ministry and 9 years in government. She aims to help women who want more out of life. Noelle is a speaker, trainer, author, and coach. She uses her skills and experience to guide women who are unhappy with where they are and seeking the path to their dreams. And Robert is the author of an entrepreneurial mindset shift and co-founder of Add Value to Life Coaching. Robert helps entrepreneurs shift their mindset and reach their dreams. Robert started out in Christian ministry as a church planter, pastor, and mentor. He began his own entrepreneurial journey after 20 years in ministry and aims to help individuals use the tools he's gathered. Robert is trained in conflict coaching, relationship coaching, speaking, training, and coaching. He uses his vast toolbox to coach business owners as they struggle and aim to grow their businesses to the next level. So I'm really excited to get to talk to both of you as you started out in ministry as missionaries and then switched over almost the opposite to, business and entrepreneurship. So really excited to hear your story. So Noelle, why don't we start with you? Tell us, how you started out.
Yeah, so 10 years overseas as a missionary wife, but I also worked through a school system, helping out in different areas, translating and just guiding other teachers through their careers and growth. Worked at the church as a director of communications and helped in ministry there with youth ministry and women's ministry. And again, just coaching people through the life that they have and issues that were going on. And then things changed and I was turning 40, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I've spent some time over the last few years working on that myself. And through the 9 years in government work, working my way through leadership positions and just guiding and helping other, mostly the women, work through situations in life and issues that go on in a workplace and at home. I've spent the last few years helping Robert build the coaching business, and I left my 9-to-5 in May of this year, and am working on helping women work through the struggles of empty nest as those kids go off to college and we no longer are needed as that mother figure in the same way. We often tend to have an identity crisis, and I want to help women be prepared and work through those feelings and emotions and be ready to be the woman that they are meant to be.
Yeah, it is a really big shift when you're going from that to, okay, I have no one to take care of. What do I do with myself?
Right.
So, yeah. So, Robert, why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah. So she said we're so quick, like her time in Columbia, like she just worked at the school, but it's fascinating that during our time in Columbia, when our daughter went into kindergarten, she was a teacher's aide. And when our daughter left there in 8th grade, Noelle was the secondary principal. So she'd earned her degree in education, her master's degree in education, and had worked at the school from being a teacher's aide all the way to being the secondary principal. So she made it sound so simple. I think she needs to give herself a little more credit. But yeah, so early in our marriage, we made the decision to go into ministry and were led to serve in Colombia. So we spent a year in Costa Rica learning Spanish. I recommend you learn it when you're younger instead of as an adult, because it's very complicated and challenging, and you need to take a lot of naps. So our son was born in Costa Rica. Our daughter was 2 while we were there. And then we moved to Columbia and spent 9 years, living in Columbia and really coaching Columbian pastors. They're really good at preaching and teaching. They love to share the Bible and share God's word, but had no business foundation to understand the processes and systems necessary to treat a church like a business. And so that's where our work came alongside of them and help them make the church more like a business, operate it in with some of those business tools that are necessary for tracking people and tracking money and just being intentional about the way you're using your resources. And we had the opportunity to leave Columbia at the end of our 10-year plan, and the church that sent us hired me as their pastor of outreach. And so I was responsible for their connections to all their missionaries all around the world, and was really took advantage of that opportunity to transition from a transactional model where the church just sends a check and the missionary sends a report to actually try to build relationships. And so I traveled to every missionary at their home site and stayed in their home and saw their work and ministry firsthand, and really wanted to establish a relationship so that when they're struggling, when their ministry's facing a challenge in a transactional relationship, they're concerned that if they report a challenge or concern that the check would stop. But if they're in a relationship and they know that the church has got their back, then the church can say, hey, we're going to help you. We want to be the support for you. And it's challenging in ministry because many times when leaders face struggles, there's a fear that they'll lose their job, they'll lose their way of life. And for missionaries living overseas and supporting their family, that concern is amplified by the fact that they have no family or resources to fall back on. And so I felt that it was really important to start transitioning that model and making it possible. And so it was really a coaching situation as well, changing that structure, but really, leaning into their lives and showing that, we're concerned about you. We want to help you. We want to work alongside you and not just be a name on a sheet of paper that's sending you money every month. And so it was really my dream job. It was exciting. It was encouraging. We had great things going in all those relationships. And my mentor of 20 years, the boss stepped out of his leadership role and the church hired a new leader, and pretty much all of our jobs went away over the course of a year. And so my job went away, and I'd gotten certified. Noelle and I both got certified as John Maxwell speaker trainers and coaches. And so that kind of laid the foundation for jumping into the business world out of ministry. And it took me about a year because I thought I'd do corporate training, do leadership, communication in corporations and teams. And I really just turns out I don't really like working for those folks. And so not that there's anything wrong with them. It wasn't a really good fit. But entrepreneurs who have an independent spirit, they're out there on their own. A lot of them are working alone. A lot of them feel like they got to tough it out. They got to do it on their own. They can't tell anybody about their struggles. They can't share, the things that are going on. Turns out they're a lot like missionaries. And so I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs. And so we've been doing that since 2018 or 2019. That we had the company since 2018, but 2019 we really focused on entrepreneurs, and that's really what led to writing the book. Was there's so many of these entrepreneurial lessons that we don't learn in school. And so I started writing my book just for the sake of sharing those lessons with my children that say, look, these are the things I didn't teach you because I didn't know. And so that I actually wrote my book between Christmas and New Year's this last year. And January 5th, I met with a publisher. By February 12th, we had 200 print copies. So I had our first 200 copies. And so that's just kind of been a whirlwind between our podcast that we host and the book. We've just created a bunch of relationships and momentum and connection. And it's just, it's fun to serve people and help people grow.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'm just curious, how did you meet? And how did you get together? What's that story?
Woo! You just asked me. Yeah.
I often will like to just say parts and make this go on for a long time, but we met at a truck stop where I was working and was going out with some friends extra work because I had was trying to leave a not great situation, but I was broken up and was trying to move on. So I was trying to get some girls to take me out.
Yeah, so I went to the truck stop to meet some friends from high school who happened to be her coworkers, and we all ended up at Denny's afterwards. And I think her and I spent like 3 to 4 hours talking at the Denny's after the friends abandoned us there on purpose.
And I didn't get off work till 11 that night, so it was a very late night.
We were much younger then.
Yeah, it was not love at first sight or anything like that. I was just out trying to, get my mind off of things. And I went home thinking, all right, that's over with, let's move on. And until I had the phone ring, and I knew the minute the phone rang, it was his break at work, because he had said when his breaks were, and I knew it was him. And the rest is history, really. We spent pretty much every day together since.
Mhm. That is beautiful.
That was March of 91.
Okay. Okay. And then once you were married and you're starting, thinking about family, what was it that made you decide, okay, we want to go into ministry?
Yeah, so we'd gotten involved after we spent the first few years just searching, right? Figuring out what kind of job, where can we support ourselves, where are we going to live? We tried some things, tried to go to Florida to chase a
Big
money
dream.
and we got pulled back to Colorado where we live, and really at the time moved in with her grandma because there was nowhere else for us to go. And so we ended up living with her grandma and going to her grandma's church. And I bugged the pastor with questions about the Bible, about stuff. And he finally, after a few months, he said, I've got this program that I do this discipleship, and we meet once a week, and we meet for a whole year, and we read different books and we do different things. And he invited me to participate with him in that. And about 6 months into that, I was pretty convinced that I needed to go into full-time ministry as a career. And of course, that meant I had to go back to college and finish school, and just lots of things had to happen. But I was able to do 3 years worth of college in 2 calendar years, and just a lot of good things can happen when you have a purpose and a vision.
We were both volunteering at our church's VBS, the Vacation Bible School, that year. It was 96. I was 6-7 months pregnant with our first child, and Robert was the lion from Daniel and the Lion's Den, running around being a crazy man all week. And I mean, it fits him. It's just but it's all good. But he had plans. So they always did this closing program at the end of the week, and the missionaries give a talk. They talk about everything they'd learned, and the kids get to, have this fun time. And so I went to that meeting, or that presentation, or whatever you want to call it. And he went off to rafting, I think, with Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And I came home from the presentation by the missionaries, like, they're not here just raising support. They're looking for other missionaries to go. And so we had a short conversation that was something we both were interested in. We met with that couple when they were back in a town close to us a couple weeks later, filled out the paperwork. And we spent 2 years talking with them and with other agencies to find the right fit.
Which was the 2 years I was in school. So it was, it was a matter of, God really led the way, even for us to choose Colombia, because we were supposed to do our internship in Argentina, and we've still never been to Argentina. So
Wow. And just talk about your faith. What's the importance of faith, and what is the importance in your life?
Well, I think, God rescued us, and we both grew up in the church and grew up as Christian kids. But certainly when we met, we were not faithful and not necessarily interested in.
We weren't attending anywhere.
Yeah, we weren't going to any church. And I think, finding the church and learning more about Jesus, learning more about God and what God wants, and just transformed our lives. And then we wanted, share that transformation with others. And really our business is just the continuation of that. We continue to, spirituality is a huge part of the work that we do. And not that everybody has to be a believer in our faith, but they need to have an openness to the idea that, this is a created world, and the creator cares about you, and the creator wants you to have success. And whether you call that creator God or not, I'm not gonna force that, but the idea that obviously this greatness, this abundance around us, and the really strong part of that is that God is for you, not against you. God wants you to do great things. God has great expectations, right? And I believe he's created each one of us for a purpose. And when you can find that purpose and align that purpose with the work that you're doing, incredible things can happen. And it's not about money. It's about impact. It's about, what is the legacy that you can create and leave that surpasses this short little blip of life that we, that we have in this body.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so Noelle, your husband was talking about how, when you guys were actually on the mission field, how you would just fill in wherever they needed you, at the school, at the church, wherever they needed you, you were filling in and just being that support. And then you came back from there, and now here you are, and you're not having to fill in for other people. So how did that feel? How was the difference in always being the support to, oh, I'm my own, I can do whatever I want now. I can actually, go forward with my ideas.
Yeah, I think that's part of the identity crisis for me, for sure. I spent probably 20 years plus doing whatever role, whatever job was needed. On the mission field, the school needed a teacher. So, okay, let's teach. The final year I said, okay, I'll give you this much amount of time. I can teach this class, or, you tell me where you want me. And the director came back and said, well, I got all the teachers I need, but I don't have a principal. So, okay, we'll be a principal this year. But even when we came home, the church needed somebody in the office. Okay, we're going to do the office. They needed somebody in youth ministry. Okay, let's help with youth ministry. The job I took at the state was entry level, but it was a 40-hour benefits. I mean, it just fit the time of life I had. But it was very much, that's what needed done. I didn't ever look for anything for me. If I look back to when I was a child, I wanted to be a stewardess. Put me on a plane, put me in travel, whatnot. I wanted to just go. And it's kind of fit in with the missionary world. And even now with the business, being able to travel and do book launches and whatnot across the states, it's great. But it's part of that transition for me of moving out of the roles that society has placed on me, and mostly mom, but the missionary and pastor wife and all of that, and trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do. And I've spent a lot of that time this year working on who do I want to serve and what can I best leave this world with? How can I help other women have a marriage of 30 plus years and kids that are loving and faith following?
Beautiful. So when you're working with women, how do you approach that? Like, what are some of the questions you ask them right off the bat, or how do you actually start working with them?
It's you got to evaluate where you're at, and then work on what is that dream that's underlying and in your core. Because I want to say probably most people not necessarily are in the job is their dream. They're taking a job, and maybe it aligns with what they really want to do, but sometimes it's just, this is the job I've had for all these years. What do I, how do I change, or how do I, the dream gets pushed aside. So it's taking some time to dive in. If I could snap my fingers, where would your life be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and evaluate what those dreams really are. If nothing else mattered, if I could make everything happen, what would your life look like? And then work on the path and what changes need to happen, which normally it isn't horrible. It's just making, once you set that dream, you want to work for it.
Exactly. You don't know where you're, which direction to go until you know where you're going. So
Right.
once you actually help them find that, then they have a direction. So that makes total sense. And then now, Robert, you work more on with the business people, but you're also working, I know, with mindset. Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think all of us have stories, right? We have stories that we've told ourselves from our childhood, stories that were told to us that we repeat in our heads, from childhood, stories we don't even know that we're telling ourselves from our childhood. And so really a big part of what I do is help people rearrange those stories, right? Find out how those stories in their past are holding them back. Their stories about money, their stories about their capabilities, their stories about what's possible, and then look at their present, right? And just add that self-belief and that confidence that they can do the things, right? So the story they tell themselves about who they are now, but most importantly is the story about who they want to be, and what impact that person that they want to be can make. And so really helping them tell a new story about their future, and then of course help them take the steps necessary to become that story that they're telling themselves. And so really it's a lot of back to the future kind of idea, right? We're going back into your past, and I can't change the way your parents treated you, or your parents talk to you, but I can help you change how you tell yourself that story, right? And many times we tell ourselves those stories from the viewpoint of the victim, and and that's depowering, right? That takes away our power, it takes away our strength, and it takes away, you know, the ideas that we have about money and the ideas we have about how the world works. And if we can transition some of those things to, God is for you, not against you, right? Many people in that victim state feel like, "Oh, God's punishing me. I don't deserve it. I'm not going to have anything good. I'm just stuck." Whereas telling yourself that story and starting to recognize, what, God does love me. Look at these things God's done for me. Look at these things that are happening around me. And God really does want me to be successful. God wants me to make more money so that I can have a bigger impact, right? I can make a bigger contribution to my church family. I can make a bigger contribution to the causes that are important to me. And God wouldn't plant those seeds of those causes being important, right? Maybe it's homelessness, maybe it's the dogs, maybe all these important things that are being done by nonprofits, but those charities need money. And the only way they're going to get money is if the people who's got that on their heart are out there making tons of it so that they can give it to them and support them and make those charities even bigger and more effective. And then, of course, starting new charities to solve the newer problems. And so I think it's just helping people see their life in a different, from a different perspective, and borrow some belief. I'm not a big fake it till you make it fan, but I'm a big believer in, what, I believe in you. I see your potential, and I'm going to come alongside you until you see it in yourself.
Mhm. Beautiful. And it really is what we focus on. Like, you were talking about, well, focus on the things that God has given you. Like, and, just being grateful is just huge. Just knowing, what you're grateful for. Cause I don't know about other people, but I've been in times when, you just wake up in the morning and you had a rough night because you've been thinking about whatever problems you were having the day before. And, I'll get out and I'll just start naming little things. Sometimes even that, my bed's comfy,
Yeah.
Just that I have air to breathe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the starting point. But gratitude is so powerful. And I don't think there's two things that I think are more powerful than people imagine. And the first is gratitude, and the second is a smile. But gratitude you can use gratitude in any moment to change your attitude, to stop an emotion from taking over, to stop anger from, it just changes your focus, right? Because you focus on what you have than what you don't have. And so often we're caught up in focusing what we don't have instead of focusing on what we do have. And gratitude is so powerful in making that happen. And having a gratitude practice every day is so powerful, right? Just giving thanks. And whether you give thanks to God or not, it's just I'm grateful for, right, the air in my lungs. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my children. You can just go on and not stop. But in moments of anxiety and stress. You can stop that anxiety and stress in its tracks by focusing on something that you have instead of something that you don't have. And then, of course, the power of a smile. I think a smile relieves endorphins and dopamine and oxytocin that are so powerful to help our body. The body's designed to receive those. But so many people spend their days in anxiety and stress, and their body's getting into fight and flight mode and dumping cortisol and adrenaline into their body. And those chemicals are made for you to run away. Those chemicals are made for you to fight. And most people are sitting at their desk or they're sitting on the couch, and those chemicals are just sitting in their body going, blah. And it takes 8 hours for a man's body to process the cortisol and adrenaline out. It takes 24 hours for a woman's body to process those chemicals out. So if you put yourself into fight and flight because you're stressed out, you're full of anxiety, you're worried about stuff, you're living in fear, that stuff is staying inside your body and making it just a mess. And you're not experiencing the chemicals that you're supposed to experience when you smile and you experience joy, and they lift you up above to those higher emotions and those higher vibrational frequencies of joy and love and peace. And I think so many people, we've got an epidemic of depression in our country, and it's because people haven't been taught how to experience joy. They haven't been taught how to experience these positive things. And we've been taught this idea that the power of positive thinking is just woo-woo, well, that's woo-woo stuff. That doesn't work. And I'm sorry, but science is proving over and over again that it does work, and it is super powerful. It is a superpower that you can control your emotions, and that you can control this feeling, and you can control how this body is reacting and working with your mind. And more and more people need to hear it, and more people need to apply it into their lives.
Well, now, are there any things that either of you do like on a daily basis, like a morning practice, or just some people aren't morning people, they're night people, but some things that you do every day that just set the tone for your day, or that keep you centered or keep you motivated in your life?
Yeah, we get up, we try to get up about 5 every morning to try and get some stuff done before the day gets busy. Part of that includes reading our Bible every day. We try to do the Bible in a year. So there's, 3 or 4 chapters every day to focus on and evaluate. And then journaling. I write at least a page, if not several pages a day, trying to do more, but of just brain dumping and getting out what is causing the anxiety or whatever could be, causing me to stress or to focus on other than what I need to do for the day. It is very, very beneficial to just get it out, write it down. Whether anybody reads it or you share it with other people or not, doesn't matter. You just need to get it out of your head so you can free up space for the new thoughts and valuable creation that you're going to have for the day.
Yeah, and I would add to that your morning routine starts with your evening routine. And so making a plan to go to bed, and the reason we can get up at 5 o'clock every morning is because we have a plan to go to bed at 9 o'clock. And not everybody needs 8 hours of sleep, but we do. And so our goal is to go to bed at 9 o'clock and just set ourselves up to get a good night's sleep. And that includes, some time with affirmations, some time with just a few confirmation statements, and even gratitude in the evening is really powerful, right? Plant a seed for what I'm working on the next day, because then my subconscious can spend the whole night working on that. And sometimes it wakes you up, and sometimes your brain's going, what? I got all these ideas. Guess what? You got to wake up and write them down. Sometimes that happens, but those are good things, right? Really trying. The brain is trying to work for you and give you the answers to the things you're looking for. But like Noelle said, when we wake up, we do start with the positives. And some of the things that I add to our Bible time and journal time is affirmations.
Okay, I'm just curious, what kind of can you give us examples of affirmations
Today,
you might
reminding
use?
myself of those positives, then it really does establish that self-belief and that confidence, and doesn't allow the world to beat it up. And 2 other things that we're committed to that's really important in that is that we don't watch the news, and we don't go scrolling through Facebook looking through all the negative. We're very intentional about what we add to our mind and what we allow in there. And that includes the relationships that we're in. We choose relationships that are going to lift everything. I'm a good investor. I'm using my money well. I'm tithing and contributing, with the money. And so set some of those things up that the ministry and my faith in the beginning made challenging, right? Because missionary work is really a lot about poverty mindset, and you get stuck in some of those places. And so those were areas that I really needed to develop my self-belief and my worthiness. And then, just the confidence in what area I'm growing in, right? As a coach. So, I'm a transformational coach, and my clients experience, life transformation, and I can lean in and be confident in those areas. And so really it's addressing some of the stories that I've told myself over the years, and making sure that I attack those, before they become my truth, right? I'm changing the way I feel about myself by reminding myself of what is true.
Mhm. Beautiful. So, have you ever had any challenges that really, really affected, your marriage?
Look at that.
I mean, obviously, like, we've been together 30 years. It's not all been, cupcakes and
That's very
ice cream.
true. Very true.
But for the most part,
Mhm.
we made a commitment early on to this journey. We made a commitment that it was, it's her and I against the world. It's her and I, heading to this destination together. And so when we face conflict, when we're not in agreement with each other, it's not about it's never become a personal attack, right? It's
Mhm.
never been about power and control. It's always been about understanding and trying to make sure we're on the same page, even when we're even when we're not, and having this vision for something out here, something that we're headed towards,
Mhm.
has always been helpful. And I think, Noelle had a near-death experience last year, and in the moments of her recovery, we had to cancel some trips and we had to change some things, and she apologized. She said, "I'm sorry." And I said, "For what?" Because I didn't understand. And she's like, "I feel bad that we had to cancel this trip, and I feel bad that things might change. We might not be able to do the things that we wanted to do." And I said, "No, but this didn't change, right? This out here didn't change. It's just you and me together, and the path is different, right? We might be going on a different way, but we're still going together." And so that's always been our commitment to each other. And it's really, kind of ties to the adventure, right? We're on this great adventure, and sometimes we're going to Costa Rica, we're going to Colombia, we've gone to Africa,
Mhm.
and that's just part of the adventure. And we travel in the U.S., going from this state to that state, and it's just part of the adventure. And this business is part of the adventure. And so for us, it really is that a commitment to the adventure, a commitment to how can we serve people better, and how can we do this together and really add value to life, is about encouraging one another and building each other up. And my role as a husband has always been, how can I encourage her and make her a better wife? How can I encourage her and make her a better mother? It's never been a relationship where one of us is trying to have power and control over the other. It's always been a relationship of, how can we raise our kids better? How can we have a better marriage and be a better example to others? And in our business, it's how can we serve others and elevate them and lift them up? And so it's always been about finding the best in each other and multiplying that.
Nice. And I think it's great the way you describe it as an adventure. I mean, if we all thought of our life as an adventure, it'd be more fun.
I hope so.
It'd just be more fun, and maybe not so serious. And when the rougher things come, maybe we could just think of it more of a challenge than this is the
What's
end,
a it's a speed bump or a roadblock, but
Uh-huh.
you might change direction, or you might have to go around it, but it doesn't have to be ending a plan.
Well, I think that's it, is you have to go into it with the focus and the mindset and the purpose of how you're going to come out of it. I mean, I just wrote a chapter for a co-authored book that's going to come out in the next couple months, and it's the power of the positive mindset
Mhm.
and the superpower that we have to handle what we do because of the mindset that we have with the smile and whatnot. And I used my story of the ER last year as the example. I went into the OR as if it was just another day. I signed my document of consent as if it was a mortgage document. Like, yep, this is just another surgery. Let's go. And I'm going to come out just fine. It wasn't a wake up and you're fine kind of situation, but God's hand was definitely involved in the whole thing. And you come out of it with the mindset that you go in with it with.
Well, and I think that expectation and positive attitude in the healing process is super powerful as well. And I think her recovery showed that. And we know we've seen other people recover, that if they have a positive attitude and they have a positive expectation and they're not caught up in the pain and they're not caught up in the negativity and they're not boohooing the oh no, I'm sick, and oh no, I'm this. It's no, I got to power through this, and I can get to the other side. This is just a hiccup, and I'm not my diagnosis, right? I'm just a person who happens to have this diagnosis. And there's a difference. And there's a lot of people, our medical system is designed to treat disease, and it's focused on symptoms. It's not focused on causes. And so a lot of our system is just really just elevating disease and elevating these negative problems, rather than focusing on human beings that are out there, human being. And we're, we're trying to help people recognize how powerful your brain can be in that healing process. And we love the medical system, and especially when it comes to trauma and it comes to, surgeries and the things that are necessary. But there's also parts of it that are, our culture is so caught on convenience and so caught on what pill can I take to get me, what pill can I take to lose this 20 pounds? What pill can I take to have these 6-pack abs, right? And we're caught up on a pill and a quick fix, instead of recognizing, what, maybe you're missing the 6-pack abs because of your diet and lack of exercise. And there is something you can do about it, but it does require work. And our culture is so caught up in convenience instead of, working for some of the things that we need to take care of.
True. So Noelle, I wanted to hear a little bit about your book.
So my book
Mm-hmm.
So Dream Life Planner. So it is a short itty bitty little read, and it is actually, I want to say it's only like 2,000, 3,000 words. It is actually work. It's not something you can just pick up and read in the afternoon. You actually need to work through it. So it's to take time figuring out where you're at, evaluate what areas of your life you want to work on, work through that vision and dream going forward, work through the limiting beliefs that you may have, and the practices of daily planning and journaling and whatnot to make your dream a reality.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a planner, not in the sense of a calendar planner, but in a planner in the intentional declaring what you want in this world. And then let's figure out what it is that you need to do to get it.
Yeah, I'm big on declaring and manifesting what you want. For example, I made a decision in March to leave my job at state government. And looking back, I can say the story. It wasn't intentional at the time, but we have to make a password for all of our systems. And at the time, I was struggling trying to find one that the system would take, because I had used everything. Then I needed something new. I used Dream Life May 1, because May 1st was the day I wanted to leave my job. And I gave my resignation on April 28th, I think, 29th. And subconsciously made that a reality. And looking back, I can say that was part of the manifestation, but it wasn't intentional in it by any means. But we do need to declare what we want and what we are going to lead for, because if we don't even declare it, we can't make the steps to get there. But once we declare it and we can, tell the universe that this is what we're going to do, everything can come in alignment with that.
Well, and you said it, it's hard to get someplace if you don't know where you're going. Like, it sounds so obvious, right? When you think about it in the form of directions, if you don't know where you're going, then obviously you're going to arrive there.
Exactly. So tell me about your podcast. Now you're doing a podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So actually, it's a little crazy. We were at an entrepreneurial event, pretty exclusive, 100 people in the room, and they were teaching about sales and teaching about podcasts and blogging and all these ways to create an audience. And this was in January of 2020. And so I declared in my journal, I'm going to start a podcast, and came home and bought all these microphones and this soundboard and all this equipment. and, waited until July of 21 to start the podcast. Um,
Okay.
I'm not a big regret person, but I certainly
Uh-huh.
wish I'd have just done it. And,
Uh-huh.
and so if you're listening and you've thought about starting a podcast, just do it. Like they're so,
Right.
they're so incredible. And I started my podcast with the intention of, I want to reach people, make connections with people that will provide information and value to my clients that won't come and show up to one of our coaching sessions, right? I can't call them on the phone and say, hey, can we hang out for an hour and have this conversation? And let me ask you some questions. They'd be like, who are you? What? But if I call them up or I email them and I say, hey, I've got this podcast, I'm serving entrepreneurs, I'd love to have a conversation. They'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
Uh-huh.
And 99.5% of the people that I've asked to be on the show have come on the show. I've interviewed Bob Berg, who wrote The Go Giver. I've interviewed his co-author, John David Mann, and his wife, Anna Gabrielle, about their book, and Mark Victor Hansen and his wife, Crystal, about their book. We've just connected with some incredible authors and incredible influencers. We just released our 200th episode. I interviewed Noelle about her journey and her transition. And it's just, it's been an incredible connector. And because of the connections that I've made through the podcast, when I wrote my book, I got 10 different influencers to write endorsements. They've read my digital copy, and the person who wrote the foreword was a guest on my podcast, who I met through the podcast. And so a multimillionaire real estate investor in Utah, and he agreed to write the foreword and wrote incredible stuff in the forward. And so it's been crazy how much the connections and network that the podcast has created has influenced the book, and now the book and the podcast together influencing our business.
And I will say that I got to take advantage of the podcast because I offered a mastermind here this month, and several of the speakers that I got to speak over these 12 weeks came from people Robert met on the podcast. It's just, the connections are just amazing, and it's so valuable.
It is. And that's why I love doing the podcast. You meet so many wonderful people, and hopefully you can meet, help those people connect with people who are listening, or people who are listening can connect with them. And it's just, we're all helping each other. And I love that part.
Well, and I think that's how it's supposed to be. I think that's what it's really about. We were created to serve humans, right? We're all human beings created to serve other humans and help. And I think we're created to do that in community. And so the more communities we can create, the more communities that we can influence and share. The reason it's so powerful is because it aligns with truth. Some influencer said some time ago that a tide raises all ships, and Seth Godin says, but we're not ships, but we are people. And when people connect and network, powerful things start to happen. It really is amazing to see what these connections and relationships are doing. And it's fun. Like you said, it's fun. I interviewed somebody in Mexico. I interviewed somebody in French Polynesia this week. Like, what? I didn't even know French had a Polynesia. Like, what is that? It's an island out there further away than Hawaii, and they speak French instead of English. The podcast has just been amazing and crazy and fun.
That is awesome. So at this point, why don't you each share what services you have, where to connect with you, just how to get in contact.
Yeah, I am working on a program to help struggling empty nest moms. It is in the process, but my book and one-on-one coaching can be found at empowertodream.com. So it's the empower, the number 2 dream. And my socials are at into R2 Peterson on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Nice. Well, and my book can be found at Amazon and also on our website, and our website's addvalue, the number 2 life.com. The podcast can be found at Add Value to Entrepreneurs with the number 2 in there as well. So addvalue2entrepreneurs.com is our site for it, but you can find that podcast all over. We're on 64 different directories and channels, which is crazy. And we're actually hitting the top of the charts. So in Germany and Sweden and one other. We're in the top 200. So the
They
podcast is
don't even
climbing
speak
somewhere in the
English.
world.
Right?
I know, it's crazy. But that's the weird thing about podcasts is we're on all these directories in India, which has really, bumped up the numbers. And obviously they speak English there, but I'm not sure how much of our work applies to them. But that's a place you can connect with me. I'm creating a box that's going to be our new short lead system is what we're calling a box of time and money for stressed out entrepreneurs. And it'll have just some quick wins, some tools that you can get quick wins in your business and in your life, and get some of your time back, get some more money coming, and start to feel more comfortable with your business. And then of course I have my inner circle coaching program that is our high ticket offer for a 6-month program, and that's all available on our website. So
Beautiful. Thank you. So you can each answer this question separately. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
And for me, I just enjoy getting up because, a year ago, I didn't have that opportunity. I'm still building my stamina back, but let's go back. So 4 years ago, when we started this coaching journey, I had put down on my desires and my dream is to be a stay-at-home grandma. I wanted to be the type of grandma that could take my grandkids on their outings, pick them up from school, take them on vacations, and just be there for them. I felt that was very valuable for me from when I was a child. I forgot to include in that my stay-at-home grandma needed to be a non-working position. So when COVID hit, I got to be a stay-at-home grandma with a job. So this year I got to adjust that a little bit. I'm not tied to the computer now that I work from home and on my own. It's a little bit more flexible, but we've also hired our daughter who comes with 2 kids. So we get to see our almost 6-year-old grandson and 4-month-old granddaughter just about daily. So that is definitely a blessing and can put a smile on your face.
That is a blessing.
I mean, and for me, it's the joy of helping somebody through those roadblocks, through those mind blocks that opens up the possibilities and just helps them take their business and their life to a whole nother level, right? It changes their relationships, it changes their relationship with money, and it changes the impact that they're making in the world. And that's what I love to see.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for being on the podcast today and for sharing and all the positivity. I love that.
Well, Dr. Kimberley, thank you so much for having us and giving us the opportunity to share our stories and asking such wonderful questions.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So I have one last question.
Okay.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
I think you guys talked about it earlier, is that gratitude. Being able to be positive about what's going on in your world and your life and be thankful for what you've got. I think it's going to take leaps and bounds and move you so much forward. Because you can't be stuck in the muck when you're thinking ahead and thinking of the Lord, or the being grateful for what you have, because we are so blessed with what we've got in this world.
Well, for me, it's just take responsibility, right? You can choose to be responsible for your life and not be a victim. If you're feeling like a victim, stop and take responsibility and say, I'm going to live differently from this day forward. And then you can choose joy, because if you're not a victim, you get to choose. And so choose to live the life that you really want.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.